Friday. It's Friday. I'm here with you. You here with me? Let's do it. Why not? Getting ready to go into the weekend. I appreciate you being with us tonight. All the ways to communicate with us at the bottom of your screen. Use that hashtag #HeyDan. This is The Story. I'm Dan Haggerty. Let's get started with the big story. So last week, I was sitting in my office. I had my back to the window. I was talking to a coworker of mine named Brandon when he said, "Whoa, something is on fire," and he pointed outside the window. I turned around and I saw this thick cloud of gray and black smoke about 100 yards away. I couldn't see exactly what was burning, where it was coming from because there were some buildings in the way, but I knew that area and I took a guess. Later that day, a viewer tagged me in this Instagram video of that fire, and I was right. It was a homeless camp in Goose Hollow. There's a coffee shop near there that I walk to, and I see the tents. These types of fires, these homeless camp fires, are a problem in Portland. And there's a long list of reasons why. But there's a term being mentioned now in that list that's typically reserved for more rural parts of Oregon, not its cities. Wildfires. We don't worry about wildfires in downtown, though this year, Portland's firefighters say we should. And they explained why to Maggie Vespa after she, just walking downtown, came upon one of these fires herself.
This is video I shot on my cell phone Tuesday. A homeless camp caught fire along I-405 at Northwest 14th and Cooch. As firefighters worked to put it out, an ODOT staffer started yelling.
"There's propane cans in there. I need you to move back."
I moved back across the street. Zooming in, you can see another reason why firefighters were so afraid. This patch of land has bushes and trees, all dry fuel, primed to go up in flames as cars cruise by. We went back Friday. That tent was gone, and a man camping nearby didn't want to talk to us. Firefighters don't know how this started. They don't think anyone was hurt.
Then I started seeing black smoke coming up from this spot right here.
Wesley Mahan lives nearby and watched flames spread. He knows it could have been worse.
I immediately saw that all the vines on the lattice work for the bridge here had burnt at least for it looks like about 15 feet.
Mahan was struck by this. Firefighters are not.
We have a real concern this year.
In the last year, Portland's housing crisis appears to have grown at historic rates. This week, we learned calls about camps catching fire have spiked too. In January of 2020, Portland Fire got 67 of these calls. By July, it was up to 114. Since then, they've taken well over 100 calls per month. So far this month, they've had 157. That's a 134% spike since the start of 2020.
It's a main concern of the fire chief.
A main concern because people are getting hurt, says Lieutenant Rich Chapman, but also because heading into summer, our area's moisture content is alarmingly low, aka the same reality that fuels wildfire fears in rural wooded areas now has urban firefighters worried too.
What makes Portland so beautiful, Forest Park, all these different areas where we have lots of trees and lots of great vegetation, beautiful stuff, and especially where it butts up right here to the city in these urban areas, it not only becomes a fire risk, it becomes a health and safety risk.
A risk to highway infrastructure when fires start on ODOT land, and a risk to businesses and homes in other cases. This week, a viewer sent us these photos of a homeless camp that caught fire along North Portland's Peninsula Crossing Trail. You can see all the trees and grass. You can also see houses in the background. They're not far away. We don't know if anyone was hurt. Chapman says the main causes of these fires are people trying to stay warm, provide light, and cook food. It leaves many, like Mahan, torn. He's made a point to meet a lot of people living on the streets.
You try and help where you can, but you still want to preserve where you live and not have it go up in flames.
Okay, so it sounds like those fears are warranted, and I wanted to bring in Maggie Vespa now to just talk about a couple of additional points here. For one, what are they doing to mitigate this and to keep people safe?
Yeah, so Dan, a lot is being done. I mean, firefighters are out there educating people experiencing homelessness on fire safety, as are service providers. And then staff with the city tell us when a camp does catch fire, they absolutely take that into account when deciding whether to clear that camp and then give people in it priority when getting shelter and services. And then there's also another factor in all of this, and that's the agencies who are in charge of and own these properties. In case in point, I talked to Don Hamilton. He's a spokesman for ODOT. We talked earlier about the fire that I came upon, and he said, hey, their landscaping crews definitely take fire risk into account more and more, like you'll see on that property, for instance. That land has bushes that are spaced out. It also has barely any grass, and he says that's not an accident. That really helps mitigate fire risk. But it is a good reminder. I mean, we talk about defensible space when it comes to people keeping wildfires away from their homes. And that's a really good practice for everybody, whether you live in an urban area or in the suburbs or in a rural area. So just everyone, firefighters say, should keep that in mind moving forward.
That's a good point. You know, another thing I wanted to touch on, and I know you got into in your piece kind of the cause. You talked to the Lieutenant Chapman, who said that, you know, it's very common things like staying warm, people cooking food. But, you know, you and I were talking about this a little earlier. We get emails all the time from viewers who have their own opinions about how they think these fires are starting.
Yeah, definitely. To kind of hit the nail on the head there, every time we do one of these stories or we post about it on social media, people pretty much write in immediately saying, I'm going to paraphrase here, but they say things like, come on, obviously they were cooking drugs and that's how the fire started. Or, come on, obviously someone lit that camp on fire and this is a case of arson. Have you looked into that? And the answer is yes, we have. And I just want to point out, Lieutenant Chapman and I had those conversations and he said, absolutely, both those things do happen, but he said they're not common. And the overriding cause, he stresses, is people who are providing for their basic needs. And either way, he pointed out, regardless of how the fire starts, firefighters do have to arrive, they have to respond, and they have to put the fire out. And the point here is this is happening way more now than it ever has before.
Right. Maggie, thank you. Let's get now to an email that I got recently after some of our coverage that we did on the trash that's blanketing the city. This came from Terry. Terry said, you've been talking a lot about trash in Portland on your show, but what about all the graffiti? I'm sure it's a lot more difficult to get rid of than trash, but what is the city's plan to remove it and when? So I'll start with the when part of your question. The answer to that is now. So it's happening right now. The city has a graffiti program that partners with nonprofits and contractors and private businesses to clean up graffiti because, frankly, we've always had a graffiti problem. It's a big city. Graffiti wasn't a 2020 phenomenon, but your eyes have not deceived you. It's certainly worse right now than possibly ever before. Removal orders are up 300%, which, if you think of it this way, they're doing 300% more work right now, and it still looks like this. Now, part of the reason for that brings me back to Terry's email, and Terry's right. It is hard to remove graffiti, especially when it gets as bad as what we've seen, because the longer that a tag stays on a wall, the harder it is to remove. Now, the work you're looking at here, you see the before and after picture. This type of work is hard to do. It takes extensive cleaning, professional pressure washing many times, and painting, sometimes many coats. This work can take days, and it can cost thousands of dollars for a building like that. And sometimes, when it's done, and you know this, you'll walk by a place and look at it and still say, kind of looks like they're trying to cover up some graffiti, or they did some work to cover up graffiti. There are times it never looks 100% better. And when you consider how many places need that kind of work and the kind of money it's going to take to do it, it adds up to a lot. When I spoke to the graffiti crew at the city, they told me, all in all, we're looking at about 2 years of work that will cost millions.
We have a backlog in reports. We're hiring somebody next week to help us with that backlog and, getting things hopefully expedited here as quickly as possible. Right now, we can get things turned around relatively quickly within 3 to 5 business days if they are, hate speech especially will get removed within a day typically. So it depends on the nature of the graffiti and what it's on.
We know the program just got a budget boost, which it needed since they already spent like all of their money for the entire year in about 6 months. And this program, again, is aimed at helping small businesses and nonprofits and homes and apartments that have been damaged by graffiti. So if you need help, reach out to the city. It's mostly free. I mean, it's case-by-case basis. Either way, the idea is to really keep the costs down for people who have been vandalized. And who knows, maybe one day, 2 years and millions of dollars in nonstop elbow grease by working-class Portlanders, we can finally say once again, instead of there is an absolutely insane amount of graffiti in this city, back to there sure is a lot of graffiti in this city. We'll get there one day. Maybe, maybe not. We might not, but we're going to try. So earlier this week, we told you about a letter from the Department of Justice to the city of Portland. The DOJ said Portland was kind of on its last straw when it comes to police using excessive force. The city was then given 30 days to respond to that letter, or the feds could actually start the process of seizing control of the Bureau. The letter was sent on March 23rd, which would have made the deadline yesterday, but the city clarified this to me last night. The city attorney's office wrote me and said, the letter dated March 23rd does not have a deadline for a response. Instead, it's a letter dated April 2nd, 2021 from the Department of Justice that requires a response. The parties have agreed that the city will provide a response by Friday, May 7th, 2021. So we'll keep our eye on that. We'll wait to see what happens. And we'll wait to see what the city's response is. This comes after the DOJ outlined 6,000 separate instances of use of force in just a 6-month period last year, and a long-standing pattern of police killing people during a mental health crisis. Some of those cases dating back a decade, and others potentially as recently as last week. Last Friday, a police officer shot and killed a man named Robert Delgado in Lents Park. Delgado was homeless, and police say he had a replica handgun when they shot him. But witnesses were saying that this man was having a mental health crisis. And attorneys for the family have been making statements like these.
What we have seen from the videos and from witness statements is deeply disturbing and alarming. We see that Robert is clearly having a mental health crisis. He's clearly struggling with to keep his composure. And we hear the way that the police were responding and directing orders at Robert in the moments when he was in crisis. Portland police undergo many hours of training, and yet these killings keep happening. The policies and the trainings are important, but the outcomes matter, and the outcomes are causing continued harm in our community.
Now, Delgado's family, they're calling on Oregon's governor and the Attorney General to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate this case. It's a very complicated issue, as they all are, and we're going to keep you updated on what happens in this case, as well as the city's response to the DOJ.
Well, good thing it's getting warmer outside, because indoor dining could be shut down again as COVID cases grow.
Unfortunately, today, that surge is here.
And the oldest bookstore in Portland is turning its last page.
You just don't get bookstores like this with magazines and old periodicals. It's just something that is just completely missing nowadays.
When the story continues. But first, it's Friday, in exactly 2 years since this.
It down to 2-1, a deep three! Oh! What? Blazers win the series, a walk-off three from Lillard. Damian Lillard from way downtown.
That again. And I guess you might as well go tonight because it's supposed to rain this weekend, so indoor dining could actually close down again because Oregon Governor Kate Brown says a fourth surge of COVID-19 is here. We're going to find out on Monday. In the meantime, the governor also says a lot of restrictions might be soon lifted as well. I know it's confusing, but we got Pat Doris here to straighten it out for us.
Governor Brown made news in a couple of ways today. One, she announced that by the end of June, she hopes to be able to drop most restrictions throughout Oregon and let us get back to our regular lives. She also said that she thinks university students should have to have COVID vaccination and proof of that before they're allowed to return at least to state colleges and universities. That'd have a huge impact across the state. And then she also warned that the virus is definitely surging and that it's very serious, and she may need to force as many as 12 counties into that high risk level. That's a huge deal because it means there's no more indoor dining. It severely limits the number of people that can be inside at retail establishments, and it's generally a place a lot of folks don't want to go. But it might be required because of the surging of the virus across Oregon. So 12 counties will know on Monday if they're going to be moved into the extreme risk. I'm Pat Doris reporting.
And thank you to Pat, as always. So tomorrow, we close the book, so to speak, on a piece of old Portland. After 83 years, the final chapter of Cameron's books is ending. They hung on through a lot in 83 years, didn't they? Even the pandemic and the protests, but enough is enough for them. Outside Portland's oldest bookstore on the corner of Southwest 3rd and Harvey Milk, Portlanders, they didn't hide their disappointment about this. They reflected fondly on the treasures that it holds inside, the rare books, the vintage magazines, the archives containing America's rich history.
I'm just really sad to see it go, so I just wanted to come here and get a few pictures myself and just check the place out before it's gone. You just don't get bookstores like this with magazines and old periodicals. It's just something that is just completely missing nowadays.
Cameron's lost its lease when the building was being sold. We covered this a while ago. You may remember it from KGW News. So they planned to close in December of 2019, but a former long-term employee, Crystal Zingsheim, she actually started an online business. So she saved this thing, raised some money, negotiated a short-term lease, and saved the shop, and everybody celebrated, but it just wasn't enough. Because a couple of months later, we got a pandemic, and their money problems grew.
For the most part, fallen through the cracks as far as accessing resources and funding, as well as just constant and unrelenting robberies, assaults, vandalism, more theft than we've ever had, and then of course just having a difficulty coming to any agreement that we could both sit with for terms of the lease and or for our purchasing the building.
It just breaks your heart to hear that, really, from her, somebody who works so hard to keep this place open. It's a downtown Portland fixture, but it closes to the public on Saturday. They have a few days to clear everything out, and then that's that. Though the bookstore will continue on. They're going to have an online business. They're going to create kind of a virtual archive. And the owner, she's looking for a new home right now for the treasures that they have inside and hopes to transition to a mobile store of some kind. We wish them luck. I'm going to read some of your comments in just a bit when we finish the story. We also wanted to show you some fun that some kids were having up on Mount Hood. These are patients and their families at Shriners Hospital for Children in Portland. It is a beautiful story. We're going to show it to you when we come back. When kids go through trauma, it's hard on everybody. It's hard on the kids, obviously, but it's hard on their family, their caregivers. A lot of times, these kids, they feel like certain things are off limits to them. Their families feel like these kids can't do certain things that everybody else gets to do. The Portland Shriners Hospital for Children recently took patients and their families to Mount Hood to show them that they can enjoy the slopes like everybody else. And photographer Kurt Austin shows us how it's helping everyone heal.
It's amazing to be out here on such a beautiful Bluebird day.
Yeah. It's just like flying like a bird, you know, it's freedom that you have.
Teaching some awesome kids how to snowboard. Are you ready to go skiing?
Yes.
They don't get out as often as mobile-bodied individuals.
Yeah.
It is really a freeing experience for them.
Oh man, it's the best part of the year.
Use your edge. There you go, bring them together.
It's just such an awesome opportunity to have them come out and experience skiing.
That feels good.
You ready for your turn?
My name is Caroline Scott. I'm the recreational therapist at Shriners Hospital for Children, Portland.
Turn on in.
This is Shriners Hospital's adaptive ski and snowboard program. So we're out here with a group of patients every weekend in April skiing and snowboarding.
Extremely fortunate.
Jack was in a really unfortunate accident and he hasn't been able to ski since that time. So today is actually his first time out on skis since that time.
This is honestly the first time I've put on ski boots in 3 years. This is something I've been wanting to do since I was lying in a hospital bed.
Yeah, he was in a really unfortunate accident where he was in the hospital for a long period of time, had an injury to multiple parts of his body. Nice save.
Even just the smallest movement that a child has, they'll be able to steer the ski down the mountain with, of course, volunteer instructors behind them.
I would pay to do this. This is so much fun.
My name's Drew Grabham, and I'm a volunteer at Shriners Hospital and a parent of an athlete at Shriners Hospital. My daughter has a muscular condition called spinal muscular atrophy, so it's a genetic condition. When she was diagnosed at age 3, I didn't think it would really be possible to take her skiing. And now she's 15 and she loves to come up here, go down the mountain. It really is like almost indescribable. At the end of the day, there's not one of us that doesn't have a little tear in our eye because we didn't think it would be possible. You can see how it hits us. Excuse me.
My name is Stacey Perrin. I am a parent of Lucy Perrin. Lucy is in this program because she got an E. coli infection when she was 8 months old and she is permanently brain damaged. She's in a wheelchair. She is elated. She was shrieking, so happy when we were driving up here. She's like, look, Mom, there's so much snow. I'm gonna go so fast.
They're often told that they can't do things, right? And this is a great opportunity for everyone to be told, yes, you can try this.
Let's do it.
It breaks my heart with happiness because she can't. I didn't ever think that she would be able to do this, and she can, and it's amazing. It's really awesome. To have something like this that makes her feel so included, like it's specifically for her. There's no words. It's just amazing.
Our photographer, Kurt Austin. What a great, that's just a really nice piece. I got a couple of emails here. Scott writing in and saying, about graffiti, only long-term solution I see is banning spray paint. That might get my mother-in-law on the picket line, buddy. She does, little DIY projects, that sort of thing. She likes her spray paint. It's an idea. Banning spray paint, I don't know if anybody's ever done anything like that. And then Mex writing in and saying, I love the show, watch every night. Your enunciation is well developed, but the pronunciation of get is not get. How many people write me in about this? Do I really say it that northeasty? It's the way I talk, man. It's just, let me be me. All right, I'll practice. Get out of here. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.